Scientology is creating Zealots, and I'm going to tell you how they're doing it. Netflix just dropped the documentary by Lawrence Wright, Going Clear, Scientology in the Prison of Belief. We're going to talk about the time I met Lawrence when he was doing his research for his book. We're going to talk about this and so much more. Hey, everybody, welcome. I'm Natalie, and this is Scientology Life After a Cult, where we talk about Scientology news that has the internet buzzing. We touch on my 35 years in this cult and leaving with 3 generations with my family. Now, when you hit that subscribe button, be sure to set the notification bell so you can get notifications when I go live with other interviews and content as well. Big thank you to my mods for being here. Hello to everybody in the live chat and the members as well. I'm glad you guys are all here. We're going to jump right into it. And of course, you know, we got to start with a little bit of music. I am loving all of these different creative, I think AI is being used. It's amazing how you can do this so quickly, these songs that are coming out. And we are going to take a look at one, which is called Protesters United by Xenu by Park Bench, who is here on YouTube. We're just going to look at a little piece of it.
No paranoid, I'll run Hubbard with little Davy from the fake space navy. Spun this tale so bizarre, a science fiction nightmare that's gone way too far. Oh, the Xenu story, a twisted darkened tale. Scientology's mask, a ship without a sail. Protesters rise, the truth they won't conceal, for they must put an end. This cult's sick and disgusting abuse. Their mission is real. Behind closed doors, the church hides its sin. Human trafficking, abuse, families disconnected. Where to begin?
Just fabulous. What do you guys think about that? I've seen a couple. Oh no, Nora got sent one too. I've gotten some other ones as well. I'm going to check them out. Aloha, Kellycopter. Great to see you there. Thanks so much for being here. And big thank you too to Buddy's dad, Conroy from Texas, maybe, for being a member for 2 months. Thank you for that. Okay, now let's take a look at, we have talked about this story a few times here on the channel, so you guys might be familiar with the case of Whitney Mills, who was a high-level Scientologist. She was an operating THETAN level 8. And Scientology had a role in her death. Now, here's the thing. We're going to look at this article here from the Daily Mail because they went and they edited it. We've got a few things to add in here. So let's just kind of stop at the top here. You guys probably remember this when this happened, which was just, I think, 2 years ago. And it involves David Minkoff, Dr. David Minkoff, who is the father of Rebecca Minkoff, who's filming for The Real Housewives of New York. They are a longtime Scientology family. Her brother has been said to be a spy for the Office of Special Affairs. And so this article really gets into it and those ties. Talks about the family of a high-ranking Church of Scientology member who self-immolated. Now, I had to look up what that was, and it means setting yourself afire. So it talks about how she reached the top of Scientology's bridge to total freedom. This was a young lady. She had a promising future. She was a real estate agent. Her family was not in Scientology. She was the only one. What I really want to focus on in this article is a couple of things. Let's see here. Here it is. So there are some text messages that went back and forth between Whitney Mills and one of her handlers from Scientology, Albertina, who is Scientology saying is not a Scientology staff member, which they think that makes it okay then because she's not a Scientology staff member, so she wasn't under the care of Scientology. Here's the thing I want to address here. So law enforcement has these text messages now, and there is evidence pointing that Scientology didn't do anything when she reached out about her mental health issues, and she was begging. Listen to this. This is from Whitney. I wish it wasn't in my brain. It's so annoying that I have it so bad and so bad mentally. The DFP wants me to come in for an interview. Now I'm going to tell you what the DFP is because this is actually really important. The DFP in Scientology is the director of processing. This is the person that when Scientology public come in, they coordinate that person's auditing program. They put them with their auditor who's going to be delivering it. And they kind of just work to determine what next steps will be. And they often do interviews. So a director of processing interview. This is when the director of processing would take information from the Scientologist and then send it to the case supervisor, who would then determine their next actions. And so here in this text, she's saying, so the person responds and says a DFP is good. So an interview, right, which Scientology is good. And then Whitney says, I said something really dumb on the phone. And Albertina's, oh, wait, I take it back. This is not with Albertina. Albertina is the person she's talking about. So this person says, oh, what did you say? And she says, Albertina. Now remember, Albertina is her Scientology handler. Albertina told me there's an assist for someone that is really sick and to drop the body. I asked for that assist. And this person says, oops. And then at the bottom, you can't see, but she says, I think I'm in trouble now. So she was begging for help with her mental health. She expressed multiple times what she was going through, what she was feeling, and true mental health treatment was still kept from her. So this is something, again, this is Lisa McPherson 2.0. This is the same doctor, Dr. Minkoff, who was involved with Lisa McPherson, lost his license in Florida for like a year, had to pay, I believe, $100,000 in the wrongful death lawsuit, and is now involved, was the doctor for Whitney Mills. So keep an eye on that. This is going to continue. The lawsuit is continuing. Just wanted to share that added piece because it really speaks to the disconnect with Scientology and mental health. This is someone who is begging for help. If you go into Scientology as a Scientologist, you're like, hey, I'm struggling mentally. Like I am having thoughts of harming myself. They use Scientology, which makes it worse at that point. So just kind of an interesting point for all of you who've never been in Scientology to understand the insidiousness of that and how they minimize dropping the body. Like you're just discarding your body like yesterday's trash, dropping the body. It's a person passing away. It's a huge loss, but this is part of how they trivialize it. You're this immortal being. You're just going to drop the body. So we're going to give you an assist. And in Scientology, you've heard of the contact assist, where if you get hurt, you touch it back. You've heard of the touch assist, where you go back and forth on somebody's body. The nerve assist, which is like getting a crappy massage. Let's be honest, it really is. And now, you know, this whole end of life, if you're going to be dropping the body assist, which Scientology denies that it exists. It totally exists. All right, let's jump over now and go to Salt Lake City, where B-Ball, I don't know if it's BBALLCHIC or BBALLCHIC. Tell me if you know in the comments the correct pronunciation here, was out there with some new signs. Let's take a look.
There's our cult. Just say no to Scientology. Kids cannot consent. Scientology traffics children in them. Look up SPTV on YouTube. And then all of these.
Just right there in front of Scientology. I'm sure they absolutely love that. I bet they do. Buddies, oh wait, already thanked you for being a member. Brooke Elliott, thank you for being a member for 3 months. Love you, Nat. So happy to support you in this way. Love that you're out there changing lives. I appreciate that. I really do. Thank you for that. Is it Kyla? Kyla? Rename LRH Way to Mills McPherson Way. Oh my goodness, that would be absolutely fantastic. And Scarlett, you're right. Minkoff has a lot of deaths on his hands. They're kind of stacking up. There seems to be a pattern, especially one that involves not letting people get help, get true mental health treatment. All right, now let's go take a look at, there were like mass swattings happening in the last couple of days. It's really kind of been crazy. We're going to take a look at a clip of when Solomon was swatted. Let's see, that's on Confident Chris's stream. There's a bunch that we're going to look at. And then I can't wait to start talking about the Lawrence Wright going clear stuff. I got a great story for you guys on that coming up.
Bro.
Thanks for going, Metro. Report any issues by calling Metro's law enforcement and security hotline at 888-950-SAFE. If you see something, say something.
guys gotta stop filming. They just
No, what?
You hear me too? Can't be filmed.
Yeah. This is not a media camera though. This is just a phone.
Everything's clear. They're all good. They know.
Bro.
And you can see Solomon there in handcuffs in the back. And then the officers are then, or let's read this. Auditing Scientology says cops were called on Xenu's and me in Kansas City on Saturday. Cops were cool. We were not detained. Cops called on Hitzel in Austin. Henry was swatted in Buffalo. OSA may be changing tactics. Thanks for that comment, Auditing Scientology. Now let's go take a look at what happened when they were taking Solomon away in handcuffs. And Danny was there trying to say, hey, you know, like he had the handcuffs on too tight, just basically being there to try to advocate and help out. Let's take a look at what happened here.
Oh, it sounds. I know.
This is unexpected.
You can see he had said to Danny as he was going up the stairs was saying to the officers, like, you know, he's looking forward to writing a report on him. And the officer then decides that he's just going to now arrest Danny for a BS reason, it would appear.
Ma'am, if you follow us, I will told that gentleman, if you follow us, I'm also going to put handcuffs on you and I'm going to arrest you for 1 second.
Wow, he's just kind of next level. You follow us and I'm going to arrest you. Seems like kind of a ridiculous thing to say too, to somebody who's there just filming it. You know what I'm saying? But that is what happened. I am not sure. You guys tell me in the chat. Last I heard, Danny has not been released yet. I think Leah is outside waiting for him. But tell me if you guys have heard anything different. Now let's go take a look. Let's go over to Big Blue where Tori was there. Tori MAGOO 44, right? Who is a treasure? Tori is a treasure. She's been protesting Scientology for decades. She was a Scientologist very high on the bridge to total freedom. In fact, Tori and I are going to do a video later today. I'll get a notification out after this. Probably, I think it was at 3 my time, so 3 Central time. I have to double check on that. Might have been 4. Actually, I'll just look now. 4. So it's 4 o'clock Central time. I'll get out a notification. And Tori and I are going to talk about Scientology's, these secret upper levels. Because I went through operating THETAN level 4 and Tori went through 7. And you don't often get to hear a conversation about that because Scientologists are definitely not allowed to talk about it. So keep an eye for that, out for that this afternoon. So over at the Blue Buildings, Tori was over there protesting with Confident Chris and some other people. And Scientologists just decided that they couldn't have her sitting in a chair. Now, remember, Tori MAGOO 44 is 77 years old. She just celebrated a birthday. And it's kind of ridiculous to go over and have an elderly woman, regardless of whether or not she's a fan of Scientology, and ask her to get out of a chair.
You're back with your camera on, I can see.
It was
They
on.
said, we need this on film.
They want me to collect the chair and take it back over to their camera.
What, the chair, you mean?
Yeah.
They told him to go. So they, meaning Scientology, told him to go collect the chair from this elderly woman. Even the officer seems a bit hesitant to do this.
You said camera.
Sorry?
You said camera.
No, I said they want me to collect the chair and take it back over to the circle.
Come on, you.
I said no.
Can she change it for the another one or what?
Like they're
Bro, they're
Like
being.
they're- property on there.
Yeah, do we see all the other chairs out there? There's chairs everywhere with nobody sitting in them.
They're
hundreds
being-
of people.
Bro,
I want them to understand. I'm saying it
Yeah.
to them because they watch it.
right.
And it's like
We need to watch
they're
this right now.
trying to be known as a real religion.
Look at all those chairs.
No one here. There's no one sitting in the chairs. It's not like, look, you know, this is the last chair we needed, man. You're back with your camera on.
So this goes on. I believe he came out there and tried to get her to move, like, I think it was like 3 times. Well, Tori, of course, was not moving at first because she is a powerful suppressive person with superpowers. So let's take a look at this next clip with Tori.
That was good, huh?
They want you off of this chair.
Huh?
They want you all of
I'm interpolating the area. Look at how much power I have.
you off of this chair.
The
You're a
weird thing,
criminal.
the weird thing is when you're an OT, you have no power, none, zero. But now that I'm an SP, I'm in, because I'm sitting here, I'm in charge.
Things like this make me want to come more often. Tori, like, damn. like the things how they see us gotta be crazy if they see us. If they're even doing all this, you know?
What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, to tell somebody to move from a chair?
I know, especially an older person. You know, it's like, come on, it's so tacky. And I worked for OSA, and their big goal was to be thought of as a real religion. And in order to be a real religion, you have to do good things.
Yeah.
This is not good deeds.
That's right. You tell him, Tori, that is not good things. That is not aloha. Okay. Going and there's an elderly woman there, regardless of whether she's protesting Scientology or not. She's sitting there minding her own business. She's got her live stream going. You can't just let her sit in a chair. Let's have her get up and move. It's just next level ridiculous. But that is Scientology. That is pretty much it. I hope they're proud of themselves. I hope somebody clips that and shares it with the dear leader. In fact, I think that he would be very proud. Wake up, OSA. I hope that you're very proud of your statistic, because one of your main statistics doesn't have to do with handling suppressive situations handled or not having unhandled situations or some confusing thing like that. All you're going to do by your actions here is create more unhandled situations. You're going to create more antagonism for yourself. More and more people are going to look at this and go, oh, wait a minute, you're making an elderly woman move. It's just, Tori, you guys have seen her protest style. She tries to even communicate and have conversations with the Scientologists there. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. It does not work. It makes you look culty. What happened to the goal of at least trying to make Scientology look like a legitimate religion? You've gone so far from that, Office of Special Affairs and Scientology. It's just massively culty now. Culty, 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 culty. Okay, that's all of my message for OSA today. Maybe not, though. Still might be something else. Okay, so let's take a look now, because Tori herself had a little message for David Miscavige, the leader of Scientology.
Trying to be a religion, David Miscavige, epic fail. I'm 77. I was in your church. You have all my money. You have $1 million worth of my money. You won't give it back. You have millions of other people's money that you won't give back. And now you want me out of this chair. Really? Mm-hmm. Really. And I have one person that I can talk to, and they won't ever talk to me in 24 years.
May I, please?
Trying to be.
And that is, I think she's speaking about when you are declared a suppressive person in Scientology, you're told that you have one terminal, one person to speak to. There's one person you can speak to, the Continental Justice Chief or the International Justice Chief. But they don't communicate with you. That's the thing. Unless you are crawling back to Scientology in some type of propitiative move to beg them to take you back, then maybe they'll talk to you, because then you can do your steps to no longer be labeled a suppressive person. But being a suppressive person in Scientology really means you have superpowers, as Tori is so awesomely pointing out. I agree, Fluffer Squirrel UK. Tori is awesome. She absolutely is. Now let's go over, I think this at Inglewood? I'm not sure which Scientology organization this was at, but there were two more protesters who were being swatted in the goofiest of ways. We are going to take a look at that and see what happens. Like I said, there were so many swattings going on lately.
What happened? Look at this. Look at this. Oops. That sounds like the cops.
They just start to realize here that they're actually being swatted.
What's happening? Look. Yahuda.
But we're not getting swatted.
Nah, they ain't gonna swat us up. 2 old ladies, are you kidding?
I love how she says that. They aren't going to swat us. 2 old ladies? Are you kidding? Well, yes, they were going to. So here's what happened. Let's just take a look at a couple more clips so we can walk through it and we can discuss. Here we go.
Some people say like they wouldn't, you know, they don't get a chance or they wouldn't come out. Wow, that sounds pretty intense. I hope we're not getting swatted.
So that was from a different point of view. And then the officer comes up and basically explains what they were doing and why they didn't just jump in, weapons drawn and all that, you know, close up. And they actually observed them. Take a look.
As a matter of fact, we were just leaving. We were going to go and get some barbecue.
Because, you know, there are some, obviously there's some different approaches for things, right? Like,
Yes,
I know you said you might have had previous interactions where I'm assuming police or deputy sheriffs, either or, come out, as you say, guns a-blazing. Well, sometimes, depending on the situation, right, in this specific scenario, not many people are around you, right? So, like, again, using this specific example, sorry if I repeated myself.
No, no, no.
You have nobody around you, so that kind of gives, like, how I think about it, some time to observe you, and then I just see you sitting in the chair, and she's just standing around.
We were talking about barbecue. We were like,
the sign,
oh,
whatever it is, right?
Yeah. Then
And that's like,
so this was in Inglewood, and it was good that the officers decided to like observe and see. And what do you see? You see 2 older women with tripods outside of Scientology.
okay, maybe, you know, there's at least some type of calmness.
They were saying it looked really calm, so they felt a lot better at it. Well, of course it did, because nothing was actually happening that would have been breaking the law or anything like that. Bobby Joe Kellogg, thank you so much for that. Got some great stuff yesterday in Battle Creek. Crashed their party. Awesome. That's great. Bobby, go ahead and send me a clip. If you guys see something, say something, whether it's something you're seeing online on YouTube or an article, clip it. Send me a timestamp. Tell me what I'm looking at. Send me a link to the article to Natalie@lifeafteraccult.com. All right, now let's go ahead and see. Let's see. Did I get, okay. I think that was so ridiculous. It's definitely weird. You guys tell me in the comments. Tell me if you're on the replay, jump into the comments. If you're not here in the chat. There was so much of this happening. Let's take a look at a clip from Scientology Audit Streets LA, who showed up. And this was like the 3rd swatting for Scotty that day. Oh, this was not the 3rd. This was the 1st of the 3.
Hey, why is he in handcuffs? He's in handcuffs because, let me finish. You asked me a question. All right, go. Answer. He's in handcuffs because somebody called the police and said that he pointed a gun at them. Right.
So I don't know if you can hear the officer, but basically he's saying he's in handcuffs because somebody called in, right? This weapons call, allegedly. And once they realized there was nothing there, for some reason, they don't just let him go, which is what William Good points out and continues to point out, which I think is a great thing, because it is kind of odd how once you determine that that's not the case, that there's no danger there, why do you keep somebody in handcuffs? I think we all know, but it's just so ridiculous. So I'm glad that they get called out on that, because it's next level, the way that, especially with the LAPD, interacts with protesters versus even in other areas, except maybe Chicago. You just don't see that level of just this hyped up response. Okay, so let's see. Let's take a look at Chicago. Speaking of Chicago, Windy City THETAN Watch is out there, and there was a new protester out there with him, Bridge1872, 1872. And she's been out there with Windy City THETAN Watch, went out and was collecting back pieces of Scientology propaganda that was being handed out. And Windy interviewed her, and we got to learn a little bit more about her. Take a look.
In this process, but it was really nice, the idea that if there's more than one person there, we can kind of make some better decisions on how we can track and frustrate the organization in that space. So definitely thank you for that. And then also today, again, you're taking time out of a family vacation to chat with us today. So I really appreciate that as well.
Absolutely.
Excellent. All right, bring our in this process, but it was really nice, the idea that if there's more than one person there, we can kind of
That is the great thing about having more than one person there, because you can kind of, because sometimes what Scientology will do is they'll try to distract. They'll send somebody out there to be followed while the other person goes out to hand stuff out. So it's always great to have as many protesters or live streamers out there as you can who enjoy doing this and taking back that propaganda. Now let's take a look at this clip from the same video where they get into the importance of educating people when you're out there. Even though a lot of people might think like, yeah, I'm not trying, I've heard Scientology is a cult, but why, and helping them understand.
Well, no, like that one gentleman, the first one that I actually took the flyer from and everything from him. It seemed like he gets them all the time and everything else, but maybe this was the first time that actually somebody approached him, and he was just like, it kind of probably put into notion how he did not like, that, like he knew Scientology was a bad thing, but also it kind of confirmed it for him. Well, no, like that one.
It really does. Because again, sometimes people just hear in general terms that Scientology is a cult, but when you have an opportunity to tell them why and let them know, that is very helpful, because that sticks and it gives them a reason to understand why that's the case. That when they're speaking to somebody, they're like, actually, it's a cult because, and giving those reasons. Yep, Mary, there are so many great new protesters now. There sure are. It's really neat to see them popping up all over the place. Now let's take a look outside Chicago, where there were some college students who were curious about Scientology, and Windy City caught them when they were coming out.
You know, it's a cult, right? Okay, no problem. If you ever want to find out more, so here's some of the crimes that they've used and the people they've caused the abuse against.
Oh.
And that website, that scan code, will let you see what's on there. And then this website will show you all the other elements. Okay. Thanks.
We just wanted to see it.
I understand. I understand. Did you learn anything? Did they made you
hold on
watch videos, right? Yeah. They won't talk to you about it, will they? Will they explain to you what they're about, or they'll say, here, watch this video?
No, yeah, we just watched the video.
Yeah.
That is pretty much to what they do. It's a lot of watch this video, look at this panel. They get people in there and they put them in front of a screen, basically, that explains Scientology and Dianetics, but often in a way that makes no sense. It's these panels. The reason why you see them at all of these Scientology organizations with the video that they send people to go look at when they want to learn is because David Miscavige doesn't even trust Scientology staff members to explain Scientology. They're not allowed to, right? You guys know the rules. First rule of Scientology is what? Don't speak about Scientology. Don't explain it. You got to read a book. You got to buy a book. All the things. Hey, Eric Rader, good to see you there. All right, now let's go take a look at, oh no, Nora, because Nora, some of you have had this question, and I'm glad somebody asked her on how can a minor sign an arbitration agreement? When people go in and do services in Scientology, even when you're doing it for training, you're supposed to sign this agreement that includes how you're not going to sue Scientology, and it's how people end up being not able to sue Scientology, but sent to this BS, completely fabricated religious arbitration, of which there is none, by the way. L. Ron Hubbard never came up with something like that. This doesn't exist. This is made up purely as a way to make it look like Scientology has some kind of valid arbitration, but they in fact do not. So what happens when it's a child? Is the child able to, how is a child able to sign this is the question. Take a look.
Somebody asked how a kid could sign this. There you go. Guardians. This is how it gets legal for a kid to sign this contract. Legal representatives or assigns now have or may hereafter have for any physical, mental, or emotional injury, property damage, or monetary loss resulting in any way from my participation in Scientology religious services. Right there, guys. That one word allows a minor to sign this, and the parents can never sue the church. Oh, somebody asked how a kid could sign.
Did you get that? Never, ever sue the church. So the minor signs and then the guardian signs. This is a great video. Nora goes through these things. She points out there's a lot of questions people have of how does Scientology get away with XYZ? How is Scientology not blah, blah, blah? A lot of it is because of this agreement. that people sign. So go ahead and check out that video. Links below to all the videos that we're going over here. And you can go see them fully because there's some great ones. Speaking of great ones, let's go take a look at PTS for Life and the SP Chef got together and are having a conversation. The SP Chef was talking about how coming out of Scientology without an education, this is something that affects a lot of people, where whether you grew up in Scientology, you go into the Sea Org, or you were born and raised into the Sea Org and you don't finish school. When you're in the Sea Org, as soon as you're legal age to drop out, if not sooner, you drop out of high school. If you become a Scientology staff member, you drop out of high school. That is just what you do. That's what we're told to do. That there's no more important education other than Scientology indoctrination. So when I was 15 years old, living in Hawaii, where my mom had married a Scientologist, she was onto her second Scientologist. That's about the time when she married my grandpa. So grandpa became grandpa dad and that whole thing. What happened was I then dropped out of school when I was 15, because you can drop out legally in Hawaii at 16, at least back then. And in the fall, I would have been 16 to join staff in Scientology. So I never finished high school. I was 40 when I left Scientology. One of the very first things, I left Scientology in January, and I think by February, I was taking classes to get my GED, and I did. And I went ahead and got that. That was like, for me, when I left Scientology, it was like, okay, where do I pick up? Where did I leave off? Well, let's start with, getting this done. In fact, I think it was the same year my daughter, I think Shelby graduated from high school the same year that I technically graduated from high school as well and got my GED. I think it was the same year, or it was really close to that. I remember her being able to help me with math. So Samuel's talking about this, the SP Chef, where, not having that education can be a concern, because Scientology indoctrinates you so heavily to believe you're not going to make it in the outside world, that there's danger there. It's full of dangerous people who are just hateful bigots and all this stuff, right? Just to keep you in the bubble of Scientology. But Samuel went beyond that, and he shares his story of how difficult that was to do. And this is the plight of many leaving Scientology, especially Sea Org members, doing so without any type of a formal education. Now, many of them, it's like we get, as an ex-Sea Org member, you get really good in the Sea Org and even Scientology staff members at learning how to do things, because you just learn how to do it. So if you need to read a book about it, a manual, whatever it is, practice doing it, you do it. You read it, drill it, do it. That was how you operated in the Sea organization for anything. There's no excuse for not knowing how to do something. You read it, you drill it, you do it. That's how it was handled. So take a look at this. I thought this was such a great conversation.
I started to look for a restaurant that would take me as an apprenticeship and allow me to go to culinary school. And I wrote 10 applications to 10 different restaurants, and only 2 of them actually answered. And they answered in very polite terms, saying they don't think I have the wits to actually do it, because you have to be, because of course I didn't have any certificate for my basic schoolings that I had. Nothing. Right. And on my CV, it showed quite clearly that I didn't finish school. And for you to be able to go to culinary school and graduate well, you obviously have to be, smart enough, shall we say. I mean, you don't have to be very smart, but smart enough, because of course the restaurant where you do apprenticeship with, they have a reputation to uphold. And if you fail at it, that will bring down the reputation of the restaurants.
It's so interesting because Samuel goes on to talk about the stress that he felt leading up to this test, because he was so indoctrinated to believe that he couldn't do it and he would fail. The things that Scientology keeps you from, especially when you're in the Sea organization, they want you uneducated as far as the rest of the world goes. There are people who leave the Sea organization who, Nora has talked about, she had never used a cell phone until she was, I think, 26 years old or something like that. Nora, if you're still here, you can correct me on the age, but I think I remember that. It's all part of the control. Keep them uneducated, unable, or at least believing that they can't support themselves. And Samuel also then shares his score on this test that he went to do for culinary school. Let's take a look at that.
To be able to pass, you need to have a 4. So if you have a 4.0, then you've just scraped by. And so anyway, so I did this exam and I thought, oh, I'm going to either fail or maybe I'm only going to get a 4.0 because you see, I didn't only want to be able to pass at the end of the 3 years. I didn't want to just sort of just manage to get through. I really want to sort of show Scientology. Not only am I going to graduate and manage, I'm going to be one of the best to sort of stick it to Scientology, to sort of show I can do it without you. And so anyway, in the end, this was my score for this exam. There was a 5.8.
Nice.
So I was almost 100%.
Almost 100%, because 6 would have been 100%. I'm so proud of him. I'm so glad he did, because it can be something too that people are introverted about or might be embarrassed by their lack of education, and then have to explain why you had this lack of education because you grew up in a cult or you'd been in a cult for X amount of years, you've been in the Sea Org for X amount of years. Can be a difficult thing to do. So when people leave the Sea Org or Scientology and go back and try to go back and get that education or do something in a field for something they want to learn about, I think that's incredibly brave to do, because I know the mind control that goes along with making you think that you're not going to be able to do it. It's all part of the control. Kim is blue. You got to write a book, Natalie. Your story should be read far and wide. Also, book tour in Clearwater would be fantastic. I love that idea. I think later this year I am going to get back on working on that again. That's my goal. Thank you for the reminder, and keep reminding me about it too. Asen says the encouragement for lack of education also makes you dependent of the cult, in my opinion. You don't dare to leave. Exactly. That is all part of it. Many Sea Org members don't have a driver's license. They don't actually have a valid form of ID. They don't have a bank account. They've never used the internet. Not all, some, a lot, especially the older ones there in the Sea organization. So it really is, I think, such a great thing to, in my mind, to highlight, to let anybody out there who is under the radar, maybe you're not ready to leave Scientology or speak out about it or do it formally or openly, know that there are so many resources out here in terms of education. For me, it was going and getting my GED. And and then I had done real estate school and broker school. And so I've worked in land development and real estate. There's so many different things that you can do. So it's not over just because maybe you didn't graduate from high school. You can still get out and learn these things, and there's lots of support for it as well. All right, let's take a look now. There is a channel here. I think it's called like Philion, if I'm saying that correctly, who did an awesome kind of documentary on Scientology called The Cult of Scientology. And there is an interesting point in here that I want to chat about. So let's look at that, and then we're going to talk about it here. Link down below so you can see the whole video.
They believe in what he started and that they have a duty to finish it. But do they actually follow Hubbard's vision? Or have they grown into capitalist conglomerates disguising an old man's fantasy behind bureaucracy? Well, they have a specific policy in place to make sure Scientology is always on track. The policy is called KSW, or Keeping Scientology Working, which has come to be the most important policy in the church.
Now, keeping Scientology working is one of the policies in Scientology that creates Scientology Zealots. And you're going to see why, because we're going to look at each of these points that the video goes ahead and shares. So if you've ever asked yourself, how do people become so hardcore in Scientology? Keeping Scientology Working is the name of a policy letter written by L. Ron Hubbard. And it is at the start of every single major Scientology service, the vast majority of them. A Scientologist has to read this. It's like several pages long, and then they get checked out on it. You get asked the definitions of words in it. You get asked to recite back some of the points. It is a heavy, heavy, heavy part of the indoctrination to make you a zealot for Scientology. This is the same Scientology referenced by L. Ron Hubbard, where he says, "We rather have you dead than incapable." So keep that in mind as we go through this. We rather have you dead than incapable.
Serving as the cornerstone for any action that takes place within the church. The KSW 10 points are: number 1, having the correct technology, which Hubbard asserts has already been achieved. Number 2, knowing the technology, which he claims many within Scientology have also achieved.
So remember, having the correct technology, knowing the correct technology. This is keeping Scientology working. This is what L. Ron Hubbard said you need to do. So it's not enough to have it. He created it. It's already done. You don't need to look anywhere else. You have to know it. So part of your responsibility as a Scientologist is to do all of your indoctrination.
3. Knowing it is correct.
Knowing it is correct. Let's not question any of it. No, it's correct. Just know it's correct. Scientology, what L. Ron Hubbard's saying, just know that it's correct.
Hubbard says this comes from application and observation. Number 4, teaching correctly the correct technology. Hubbard claims this is done worldwide throughout Scientology. Number 5, applying the technology.
So you got to learn it. You're only learning it correctly if you're learning it from Scientology, not from any outside source, from a Scientology organization where you paid, you did the service, and you're learning about it. And you better be applying the Scientology too.
Which Hubbard also says is already happening. Number 6, seeing that the technology is correctly applied.
Rat on your friends if they're not correctly applying Scientology, write knowledge reports on them, turn them in.
Hubbard states that instructors and supervisors do this already. Number 7, hammering out of existence incorrect technology.
Hammering out of existence incorrect technology. What could be incorrect technology? That's anybody who Scientology considers to be a squirrel or some other technology that's not L. Ron Hubbard. Not just don't look at it, don't use it, hammer it out of existence. Again, this is how a Scientology zealot is made in 10 simple steps.
Is the first problem area, according to Hubbard, which he calls a weak point only handled by a few. Number 8, knocking out incorrect applications.
Same thing, ratting on your friends who might not be correctly applying Scientology, who might be, just not following L. Ron Hubbard to the T or doing what he asks of a Scientologist.
Which Hubbard says is not worked on hard enough. Number 9, closing the door on any possibility of incorrect technology.
Do you see the obsession here with not looking anywhere else, not looking to any other technology, while also not questioning L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology technology? Because per keeping Scientology working, it's the correct technology. That's early on. But now you got to hammer out of existence, close the door on, not let anything slip in. This is why the snitch culture in Scientology is so huge. They need to snitch and report on each other because of this reference. And they often reference this in their knowledge report, keeping Scientology working, which one of these points you might have violated on your way to becoming a Scientology zealot.
Hubbard says that this is, quote, impeded by the reasonable attitude of the not quite bright.
Reasonable attitude. We've talked about this too. Reasonable in Scientology, not a good thing, not allowed at all. You cannot be open-minded. You cannot be open to other things. You can't consider other things. You can't have a reasonable reason for maybe not doing one of these steps. Being reasonable is not okay in Scientology. You have to be a zealot. And if you are reasonable, you're not that bright. That's what he's saying. If you consider anything outside of Scientology, you're not that bright. If you disagree with L. Ron Hubbard, you're not that bright. So do you see how the mind control happens here on your way to becoming a zealot?
And lastly, number 10, closing the door on incorrect application.
Closing the door on incorrect application. Do you see, again, he's obsessed with making sure nothing gets in, that you don't look at any other indoctrination, that you don't go and seek mental health help, that you don't do any of that. And if you do, you're not keeping Scientology working. If you question it, you're not keeping Scientology working. You're on your way to becoming a religious zealot. Yep, Anna, you and me both. I guess I'm not that bright. Exactly. Asen says the snitch culture was also encouraged during the Third Reich. Also, the Hitler Youth reminds me of all the small kids working as cadets and all. Ooh, that's a really good point too. So true. Sins of Scientology, way to think for yourself, huh? Exactly. Remember, this is at the beginning of every major Scientology course. So Scientologists read it over and over again. If you get in trouble for not following any of these points, sometimes you have to do clay demonstrations of each of these points. So you got to get the clay, which actually in a course room for me was fun because it was a break from the monotony of just reading all that L. Ron Hubbard. I like to go play with the clay. It was like a break. So you get the clay and you create in clay each one of these keeping Scientology working points. And that is how Scientology creates religious zealots, by having this at the beginning of every Scientology service and reminding them of these points and hammering it in and bringing down the hammer on anybody that doesn't obey, that doesn't go along with it. That's when you get security checks, interrogations. That's when you enter into human rights abuses of depriving people of food, depriving them of sleep, and much worse. Much of this is being covered. There is a new documentary out on Netflix. Some of you, if you haven't seen it, start watching. I watched it when it was originally on HBO, but now it's on Netflix, so many more people can see it. I'm watching it again because I haven't seen it since it first came out. So I think I'm like almost halfway through, and it's called Going Clear, Scientology and the Prison of Belief. So this is, Netflix says it's via interviews with ex-members. This documentary, based on a best-selling book, examines Scientology's alleged abuses and potentially illegal practices. So this is on Netflix. If you guys haven't watched it, maybe you could watch it and we can talk about it throughout the week here. Like I said, I just started it again, so it's fresh in my mind. I'll probably maybe be able to finish it today. So if you guys want to, we're going to be talking about it. Check it out because it's going to be an eye-opener for you when it comes to Scientology. And Lawrence Wright wrote the book Going Clear, which is what the documentary is based on. And Lawrence Wright was involved in the documentary. I met Lawrence Wright back when, oh my gosh, in like the mid 2000s, 2012, for a few years, we were having these, I thought they were like ex-Sea Org reunions because you would go and you would meet people who were in the Sea Org, some who I knew when I was in the Sea Org, some who I didn't know. This is when I first met like Mike Rinder and Marty Rathbun and many other people who had been involved with exposing Scientology. And we were at a reunion in Texas, and Lawrence Wright was there because he was writing this book. So I was there with my husband at the time and my son. And they're in Texas attending this and just kind of like getting to know other people who'd love Scientology. We were recently at a Scientology and Lawrence Wright was there and I met him and chatted a little bit. And it just was fascinating to me the way he did his research. He's so thorough in his research. The book Going Clear, I think, is one of my favorite books when it comes to this is what Scientology is. This is what Scientology is about. It has been fact-checked and fact-checked and fact-checked, and this documentary as well. So if you haven't seen it, get on it so that we can talk about it because I am dying to talk about it. And some of you, it looks like you've read the book. That is fantastic. Fantastic. I can't wait to more of you see it. And we're going to talk about this more because it is such a great tool. I'm so glad it's on Netflix because this is also going to help people who are what we call under the radar, where they want to leave Scientology, but because they feel that they can't yet due to family connections or business connections or friends, whatever the reason, they're kind of just trying to quietly pull away. Or some might be considering that they want to leave, but the mind control is so heavy. The indoctrination is so heavy. Remember what you just saw. Hammer out of existence incorrect technology. Close the door on incorrect technology. It's next level obsessive. It really is. Let's see here. James is asking, how long did it take you to get all your IDs, banking, driver's license, etc.? I was a public Scientologist when I left. So when I left the Sea organization and moved to Minnesota, for about 5 years, I did nothing, but then I ended up dating a Scientologist and we got married and I kind of got stuck back in. I had thoughts of leaving then. I had a million reasons to leave, but I didn't. And then because I married a pretty dedicated Scientologist and my family was still very involved, including my mom, I was still in. But during that time, I had, driver's license, bank account. So it was different for me. But when I did leave the Sea Org, I had to do all that. I think I had a driver's license because I lived in Seattle. Because remember, when I was in the Sea Org and got pregnant, you weren't allowed to have a baby in the SEAL organization at that time, this was 1990, you were punished by being sent to a smaller Scientology organization. They told us you're going to be sent to one of the few failing Scientology orgs. Well, they were all failing. They are all failing for the most part. And I went to Seattle and I refused to terminate my pregnancy. Both my husband and I wanted this child. So there is just so much there. So I hope that you guys go and you check this out, like I said, so that we can talk about it. Let's see here. Free Xenu project. It seems each policy helps reinforce the fact that you are trained to indoctrinate and brainwash yourself. Yes, this is also something that some people don't realize about Scientology. It's very much about re-brainwashing yourself. These indoctrination points are drilled into you so heavily that when you have a thought that contradicts them, you will realign what you're doing. You will go, oh, I'm not supposed to look at that. That's not okay. That's going to get me in trouble with Scientology. And then I'll have to do interrogations, which I'm going to have to pay for. So I'm just not going to read that article. I'm just not going to watch that YouTube video. But today there is so much content out there, not just in terms of, regular media outside of social media. It's all over social media with so many channels talking about Scientology and exposing it, but also channels that have nothing to do with Scientology who are still talking about it and exposing it because it's super interesting. Cults be cultin', just every day, all day. Pause for Andrea says, how do those who willingly joined as adults versus those who grew up in Scientology not remember the actual meaning of these important words like ethics, reasonable? How do those who willingly joined as adults versus those who grew up in not remember the actual meaning? Not remember the actual meaning of these important words like ethics, reasonable. I'm not totally tracking what you mean by how do they not remember. I think maybe you're saying that you can see how someone is indoctrinated from childhood, but how does that happen with an adult? In the same way, Scientology will find out what is ruining you, what you consider to be ruining your life, and get you convinced that only Scientology can handle that. And every step of the way, whatever your problem is, which could even include not getting anything out of what you've been doing, the solution is to do that next step. You just got to do that next step in Scientology and you'll get there. KT PETA, what does flubless and flawless mean? That just means without error, without mistake. When you're training to be a Scientology auditor, which is what they call their counselors, you are supposed to be flawless and flubless, meaning you do not make a mistake. You got your robotic training down. Your training routines are down. You're not varying from what you're supposed to say, because Scientology auditing is not like regular counseling, obviously. It's really not about that. And you really, as the auditor, you're not allowed to get into things like have a casual conversation. You have to say exactly what you were trained to say and respond exactly the way that you were trained to respond. And if you can do that, you're considered to be flawless and flubless, which honestly, that's a scary Scientologist because you're really indoctrinated. A lot of people, the other thing is it's not even really obtainable to not make a mistake. To the training routines, I've told you guys, we had to sit there for 2 hours minimum. When you could sit there for 2 hours and face another person without flinching, without itching, without coughing, sneezing, nothing, unmoving, just sitting there calmly and at least looking calm and relaxed and looking right into their eyes for 2 hours solid. If 1 hour and 50 minutes go by and you sneeze, you go back to the beginning, clock starts over. Many of us had to do this over and over and over again. You do it throughout your Scientology career. There's a course that teaches children to do this called the Children's Communication Course. And those are things that become dangerous because what you're doing is you're basically drilling a child to not have a response to things that upset them, which just sets the stage for other abuse to occur. All right, let's see here. Sancho Panza, I've read that they're starting to delete Hubbard from Scientology, deleting courses, removing books. Have you heard of this too? Yes, David Miscavige, since he came up with this golden age of tech thing where L. Ron Hubbard books had things that were missing or things that should not be in there, things that should be in there, they had to be redone. They were repackages. All the Scientologists had to buy them again. This is ongoing. So I do believe that. And I do think that that Scientology leader David Miscavige is inserting himself into that role of what Scientology see as source. L. Ron Hubbard is source, the source of everything, information that you get, how to live your life, how to handle something, whatever he says is true. David Miscavige for years has been interjecting himself as that person. Now the hip hip hoorays at these events aren't just for L. Ron Hubbard, they're for David Miscavige as well. All right, let's see. Did I miss anything else here? All right, so remember this afternoon, before you head out of here, please hit that like button and subscribe as well. Set the notification bell to all, because I'm going to have Tori MAGOO 44, Tori Chrisman on, and we are going to get into the deep, dirty secrets of those confidential Scientology levels, going beyond just Xenu and body thetans. What happens at the top in Scientology? What do Scientologists really think about it? We're going to have a conversation that I've never been allowed to have before with somebody else who's done these operating thetan levels, and I think it's going to be great. That's going to be at 4 p.m. Central Time today. So if you can make it, make it. Otherwise, catch it on the replay. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Big thank you to the mods. I hope everybody gets out today and has an amazing cult-free day.